Well, welcome everybody. Welcome back to Tulum Magazine. And this is our episode on movers and shakers in Tulum. And today we've got with us one of the hardest working women in Tulum. That's Miss Nubia Young, or Ms. Nubia Young. She's the founder and CEO of Black in Tulum. Welcome.
Thank you, Yoli. How are you today, girl?
I am excellent. Great to see you.
Thank you for having me.
And you know, it's 2023, Nubia, and we have seen your business grow and expand.
Yes.
And you are 20,000 people strong in terms of your community.
A little over.
Yes. It's hard to keep up because it keeps on expanding. And this year, we want to hear a little bit more about what you're going to be doing with Black in Travel. But before we go there,
Okay.
I want you to take us back to that moment when you were like, okay, I'm going to buy a one-way ticket to like uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
What was that like?
To be honest with you, I was just done. I was at a breaking point in my life, and I think that many of us get to that breaking point where we look at what's going on around us and we're just like, this can't be it. I can't just be working to work and, you know, wanting to climb the ladder and keep getting overlooked. And it was the point of me being laid off by my employer that something inside of me was like, I'm done. I'm not doing this again. My entire being was, you know, made up of me being a mom, an employee, my salary, my title, all encompassed who I was, and I knew I was more than just those things.
Right.
I was no longer an individual, right? I was a vessel for everything else, and I needed to come to a place where I was actually for myself that I had never been at. So I just kind of dropped everything. It was like, I'm done.
And do you know, quite often when people are thinking about making big decisions, they have this pros and cons list.
Mm-hmm.
Do you recall what was on your list of reasons not to make this move?
There was no pros and cons. It was, this has to happen, and if it doesn't happen, I don't know what will happen to me. You understand what I'm saying? At that point in my life, I was going through some depressive things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I will say I was going through depression. I wasn't necessarily my happiest self. I had everything that I wanted and needed. You know, I had a wonderful townhome. My kids went to great schools. I had what I figured to be like a large friend circle, you know, happy hours. I was out. I was doing me.
Right.
So from the outside, it looked like I was, you know, had it all. But internally, I was hurting. Internally, I was in need of something more. Internally, I knew that whatever I was doing wasn't it.
Right.
And that included my circles. And I just knew that I needed a change.
Right.
I didn't know what that change looked like. I just knew that when I first had my first taste of travel, there was something that resonated with me because I never felt a sense of belonging in the United States. So it was like an energy field that was like, okay, let's go. Something was pulling at me. It's hard to explain, but that's exactly what was happening.
So walk us through, you know, that journey. Where did you go first,
Mm-hmm.
and what led you to Mexico?
I booked a ticket to Southeast Asia, and I had never been to Asia before. I had never knew or seen people of color that I knew that were in Asia.
Yeah.
However, I ran across a mutual friend at the time of someone that I had met, you know, and she was in Asia doing some program to teach kids English abroad.
Right.
And I reached out to her and was like, hey, what are you doing in Thailand? You know, she was in the islands of Thailand. And so I chose Thailand as my first place. I did not choose where she was. I did not choose to go the route that she went. I decided just let me try Asia. The most I knew about Asia was that it was inexpensive. It was known for good food and all of those little wonderful things you see on social media. So
yeah.
I said, at this point, I'm open. I literally remember saying, like, universe, I'm open to receiving whatever you have in store for me.
Right.
And I will, go about it with gratitude and know that you have my best interest in heart. So whatever fears I had were kind of like, I would say pacified by the fact that I knew I was gonna be okay.
Right.
And I stayed in Thailand for about almost 3 years, and it was such a dynamic, beautiful experience. And the moment I landed in Thailand, I didn't realize that we were outside. We were in Thailand.
Right.
And I just met a community of wonderful people of color, professionals, doing all kinds of things.
Right.
And it was just a beautiful experience. And while I was in Asia, I got to travel all through Southeast Asia. I mean, I've been to India, Malaysia multiple times, Indonesia, and Vietnam, and I just kept traveling, Cambodia. And in 2.5 years, I probably got to go to maybe 15, 20 countries.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
One of the first questions we always get is, from folks who are thinking about this expat life is, how do you make a living? The dynamic has definitely changed from it just being retirees or digital nomads.
Yeah.
So in those 3 years, how were you making a living? Were you living off of savings?
I gotta be fully transparent with you guys. When I left and I said, bump this, I'm out, I took my 401k out because I felt like, why would I keep this money in there till I'm 67, right? If I make it to 67, if, by 67, I even have access to my own money.
Right.
So I took my money out. I took the package that was given to me by my employer, and I collected unemployment. So in Southeast Asia, that went a long way.
Right.
So the first maybe 8 months, I didn't work at all. I just enjoyed my life.
Yeah.
I was enjoying my life a little too much because I now realized, oh, wait a minute. I got money going out, but I ain't got no money coming in. So that's when I ended up checking in with my community, like, hey, what's this teaching online thing? It was easy at the time to make a little bit of money.
Right.
And so I started teaching English online, and that ended up turning into a side hustle. And I started teaching people how to teach English online. So the entrepreneurial spirit was always there, right? And so I had a business called Remote Side Hustle, and then I started doing retreats. I had a podcast. So all of these things I was monetizing little bits at a time, and I was learning about how to monetize as a small business. So that's how I substantiated myself during that time in Asia. I landed in Mexico in June of 2019.
Right.
And long story short, I was dating somebody in the United States who wanted to try their hand at living abroad.
Right.
I said, I'm not taking you to Asia because it's way too far. And if something, doesn't transpire, I don't want you to have to be on a flight 24 hours, right, to get home. So let's try Mexico. It's close enough. You're out of the country, but it's a 2-hour flight. And they chickened out last minute. Oh. And I ended up going to Mexico City alone. And I fell in love with the city. Mexico City gets cold.
Right.
And I'm from Boston. And I had lived in tropical climates for, at that point, almost 3 years. And I said, I can't do this. So I came over to Playa del Carmen in Quintana Roo, and I literally been here ever since. So that's how I got to Mexico.
That is amazing. So Nubia, let's talk about the Instagram life versus real life. Mm-hmm. There's somebody who's watching this interview and they're thinking they want to make their exit from wherever and they want to try this expat life. Mm-hmm. When you think about those early years, what do you wish you had been prepared with? What can folks do to prepare for this kind of life?
Honestly, preparation is an individuality thing. So, it's really about what makes you feel comfortable. I think that the best thing to do is to go in with the mindset that everything that glitters is not gold. Mm. However, just because there are bumps along the road doesn't mean that it's not for you. And I wish that more influencers in the travel space shared more of the trials that we go through as travelers instead of glorifying just the location.
Yeah.
What they don't talk about is getting to the location sometimes. Issues with Airbnbs or transportation or flights or cost or, locals, those kind of things. Like, I wish they shared more of it transparently. So
Right.
understand that just because you've watched a couple of videos or you follow somebody, that's their experience. Your experience may look a lot different. So just understand that. Understanding that will help you go so far, because expectations is the mother of disappointment.
Right. There seems to be a natural pattern of folks finding folks like themselves, finding their tribe whatever city they get to, which seems like that's something that happened here in Tulum, but you certainly have been the conductor. Tell us how Black in Tulum came about.
Oh man, I use a statement all the time that says, you're never alone. And even though I've been traveling the world solo, I've built and have met people and, communities all over the world.
Right.
And that gives me a sense of feeling that I'm not alone. So when I was in Tulum, which was right after the pandemic, I'll say. When I say right after, I was here before the pandemic, and then I got quarantined in Playa del Carmen. And the moment I was able to get out of Playa, I hauled ass to Tulum. And I would walk the streets and see one person of color here, maybe a couple over there, and it was just like, oh, they're outside. Hi, like, hey sis, hey girl,
Right.
And I was just enjoying seeing somebody like walk into the cafe, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, you're American and you're Black, like, what's up? Like, where you at? And at that point, I did not look at creating a business. I didn't look at doing anything other than how can I get these people of color that I'm seeing on the streets together in one place.
Right.
That was literally it. And my background is in hospitality management, so it just made sense. You know what? Let's get them together. Let's have break. Let's like break bread. I'm sorry. And I put together a brunch on the beaches in Tulum.
Yes.
And I was pleasantly surprised that 25 people of color showed up. And that 25 has now turned to 25,000.
25,000
in less than 3 years.
Strong.
Yes.
So what can people expect when they come to a Black in Tulum event? And you have a whole sort of variety. Now you have a portfolio of events, right?
We started off with just brunches, and then that morphed to Afro Beats and Bubbles brunch. And then Welcome Wednesday was the next event, and that was just a kickback. Welcome Wednesday is my staple event, and that has been going on consistently every single consecutive week, like literally for almost 3 years. And then we have a couple of other events that we have in place. So when you come to Black in Tulum events, you will feel, how can I put this? It's hard to put in words, but the best I can say is it's a vibe.
Yes.
It's a vibe. Like, people, they're like, yo, this is a vibe, yo. Like, you're in the jungle of Tulum, vibing with other professional people of color and people of non-African American or African descent, just in one place, enjoying the music together.
Yes.
They're dancing, they're connecting, and there's no like looking at each other funny, like, oh, what has she got on, or what? It doesn't matter. Everybody is just there to have a good time. And that's what I love about what Black in Tulum brings to A, the community, and B, to the guests that frequent the events.
I love that. And there's something about the fact that people feel free.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they've been, initially it was like they were escaping COVID.
Yeah.
But there's definitely something about being in a different location. Talk to me about how you think about your impressions of Mexico versus what you had originally maybe thought. What has surprised you about Mexico?
Again, I didn't come into Mexico with expectation. I was pleasantly surprised when I landed in Mexico City. I was like, yo, this is like a New York City full of Mexicans. This is dope. Like, they got, Chapultepec Park, which is very similar to Central Park, if not bigger.
Right.
They have, the metro system. And it had been years before I had rode the metro outside of going to like places like Europe. They had some amazing international food and cuisines from all over the world. So I was like, this is kind of cool. No expectation, but definitely like whatever expectation, if there was one then, was definitely surpassed.
Right.
And I was pleasantly surprised. Mexico as a whole is a beautiful country. Oh my gosh. And it's sad that we are all North America, and the way the United States divides Mexico is really just disheartening, because a good percentage of the United States was Mexico at one point back in the day, right? Before the 1800s. And the country landscape is very similar to the United States. So you have the mountains, you have vineyards, you have ocean, you have plains, you have jungle, pyramids, it just goes on and on and on. So, and it expands just like from California all the way down to Miami. It's just as expansive. So when you take the time out to visit Mexico, I challenge you to get out, right? It's great to go to Cancun, Tulum, Playa, Cabo, but there's so much more.
Yes.
I mean, you have Oaxaca, and it's known as like the capital for like the best cheeses and chocolates in Mexico. You have Mexico City, like I said. You have Puebla, that is just amazingly quaint and beautiful, and they even have 365 churches in Puebla. It's crazy. You have places like that have the Afro Mexicano community in Veracruz. Their food is very different from a lot of the other foods. You have the north, like Monterrey. I just can go on and on and on. And I don't think people understand the history between Mexico and the United States. But Mexico's a beautiful place. It really is. And when people talk about it, unfortunately, they talk on the fearful side of what you see on things like Netflix, or what the United States have depicted as being like narco or organized crime driven. The truth of the matter is, it exists. The reality of the matter is, if you ain't looking for it, they ain't looking for you.
Right. Just like in New York or DC or anywhere else. Chicago.
Things happen all around the world. There's corruption all around the world, including the United States. So I tell people, please don't come here with just that premise of what you think Mexico is. Give everybody the opportunity, no matter where you are, to shine. There's going to be greatness, and there's going to be downfalls, right? Theft is everywhere. Granted, you leave your purse somewhere, it's going to get stolen. I don't care if you're in the States or anywhere else. You leave your car unlocked. Granted, you might come back and the car's gone. It's the same stuff. So you can't blame Mexico. It happens everywhere.
That's just human behavior.
That's just human behavior, unfortunately.
One thing what I really love about your Welcome Wednesday is, I'm sure a lot of people have questions about safety, just alluding back to what we were just talking about. But, for a person who was traveling solo like you were, Welcome Wednesday is a great place for them to kind of pop in, plug in, meet other people who are traveling solo. Yeah,
absolutely. One thing that I can pride myself on, that I would say makes me and my business stand out from the rest, because even though I was the first and one of the largest here, there are others. And one thing that stands apart from us is the level of comfortability and hospitality that you will get with Black in Tulum. I remember standing at the door for over a year actually welcoming people. Like, hey, how are you? Like, the first thing you got was, and I'll ask you, can I give you a hug? Like, I never, cross those lines without asking.
I could attest to that.
But it was always, a welcoming smile. It was always great conversation. It was always wanting to get know more about you, because that helped me understand where everybody was coming from, as well as what brought you here. So those relationships with the people that came through Black in Tulum, especially the first year, they've come back more than once. Yeah. And they have watched it grow, and they're just like, oh my gosh, I remember being here when it was just.
Right.
And they're like, look at this now. And they're like, oh my gosh. And they feel and are received like family. Like in the Facebook group, everybody calls themselves cousins. They're like, what up, cousins? I'm coming to town, in July. Who's going to be there? And I love to see people link up. And in the group, other solo travelers, we try to do a post every month to see who's traveling solo. And a lot of times they link up on social media, and then they coordinate their travels, and they're no longer solo. Again, You're not alone, right? Or they'll reach out to us and they'll say, hey, I'm coming solo and I have some reservations. Can somebody help me? When I say reservations, I'm talking about like, I'm a little afraid, or I have some questions. We're there. We're there. We're going to text you back, email you, give you a call if you need, and we're going to help you navigate, and as much as we can to make you feel comfortable. And so that when you land in Cancun to head down to Tulum, you already have somewhat of a level of knowledge base that you were able to get from the group, you were able to get from the staff, and you were able to get from just overall videos and photos that you'll see.
So, Black in Tulum, check. It's a success.
Check.
And now you are expanding. Tell us about Black in Travel. What can folks expect from that? What's your vision for it?
Black in Tulum is a stepping stone. As Black in Tulum grew that first year, I was like literally head down, like, oh my gosh, what's happening? I couldn't catch up to it because it was on a upward trajectory, and there was no stopping it. It was going to happen if I was going or not with it, right? By year 2, I said, okay, because I have been traveling for quite a number of years, travel trends come and go. They ebb and they flow like anything else. So I said, I want to be able to offer something else outside of Tulum, just in case, you know what I mean? It's that pivot that we need to do. And unfortunately, some of us wait so late, and then we're just like, oh my God, I don't know what else to do, because you've been coasting the whole time. Yes, absolutely. And I didn't want to be just boxed into Tulum. However, Black in Tulum isn't going anywhere. However, we are evolving, and we're growing and maturing to Black in Travel, where now we're able to offer these travel experiences elsewhere outside of the world, around the globe. And I'm not doing this alone this time. I am working so hard on some fabulous collaborations with other travel businesses and travel personalities and influencers around the world to be able to offer a multitude of experiences. Some experiences will be around food and wine. There will be some experiences around adventure. There will be experiences around wellness, and there will also be experiences around history and culture. So this way, it's not just a box. It's like you can pick and choose what experience works for you and how you want to do it. So I'm so excited. It's been a lot of work put in, and I just can't wait to see Black in Travel, soar.
Amazing.
Thank you.
So what tips do you have for people who want to start a business while abroad? It's one thing to be working remote or doing a side hustle or being a digital nomad, but it's another thing to actually start an enterprise outside of your sort of home country. Any tips?
I want to let people know to lead with passion and purpose. If your focus is just on the dollar, I would shy away from it, right? Because if your focus is primarily and merely the dollar, you end up falling into I'm not making enough dollars. Right. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
But if you're doing it with passion and with purpose, you understand that the dollars will come. And there's a difference because you're watching your passion and your purpose come to fruition. So the one thing about entrepreneurship that I've learned over the years of now doing this is find where the gap is, right? I insert myself into travel businesses and companies, and I go to, you know, conferences and different events, and I'm a consumer, right?
Yeah.
And then I think from a consumer perspective, what could be better?
Yeah.
What are they doing well? What are they doing not so well? And that's where true entrepreneurship flourishes, because a true entrepreneur finds a gap and fills it.
Right. Right. So well said.
Thank you.
Nubia, we look forward to continuing to seeing you soar. And I know that the Black community here and elsewhere are really behind you, supporting and cheering you on. And we look forward to coming out and turning up at your events, or chilling and kicking back at your events.
All of the above, yes.
So how can people get in touch with you or discover more about your events? Where can they connect with you?
Oh my gosh, anywhere there's social media, honey, okay? So right now, Black in Tulum is our Facebook group where we started, and that is the community where you can get a lot of knowledge for Tulum specifically and other parts of Mexico. Black in Tulum on Instagram, Black in Tulum on TikTok.
Yeah.
And then Black in Travel, there is blackandtravel.com and Black in Travel on Instagram, but it's blackandtravel_.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, the list goes on and on.
Honestly,
Honestly,
she's out there.
I'm outside.
Y'all.
Listen, if you just literally go to blackintulum.com, and we are not shorthanding or abbreviating, it is BLACKINTRAVL or TULUM. It's either or. Either way it goes, you can get to one from the other. So hit us up online, and you can follow us on social media from there.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, girl.